wellnesscouch.com, streaming wellness into your lives.
You're listening to A Quirky Journey, the Healthy Family Podcast with your hosts Jo Whitten and Leah Follett. Welcome to A Quirky Journey. Join us as we share our family's journeys to good health. You'll find plenty of inspiration, tips and recipe ideas, as well as stories from everyday people who've struggled and overcome health problems and diet challenges in their own families. I'm Jo Whitten, author of the blog and book Quirky Cooking, and I'm here with my friend and co-host Leah Follett. And Hi Leah. And we have a special guest today.
We do.
We do.
And it's been worth the wait, I'm sure.
Oh, definitely. My friend Talisha from Little Mashies is here to share her story. And
hi, girls.
Hi. We're very excited because Talisha has a very interesting story. The first time, I'll just have to quickly tell you how I met Talisha. So Talisha contacted me through my blog and we were chatting about her product, which is the little reusable squeezy pouches for kids. And she started to tell me her story of how she came up with this product and how she developed it and why. And her story was so fascinating. I was just like, oh, you have to be interviewed on a show. And I didn't have a podcast or anything back then. So I ended up writing out her story basically and putting it on my blog. But it's so much more interesting when you hear it from her own mouth. So I'm really excited to share it today. No, it's true. You're going to be flabbergasted, Leah. Anyway.
Oh, I will. And I've been ignoring people. People have been trying to tell me, oh, she was on this podcast and this and that. And I've avoided Facebook. And I'm just like, no, it's like a man with the football score at the end of the season. It's like, no, I don't want to hear it. The game's recorded. But,
don't tell me.
No, don't tell me. So
how funny to be famous for my terrible tummy.
Oh, see, bad things sometimes turn up into good things because you're helping a lot of people because of what you've been through. So what we wanted to talk to Talisha about was because she's had so many issues with her diet, and as we've been talking about in our other podcasts, it all comes back to gut health. It really does. And Talisha will tell you that herself and what she's been through and how she's worked on her gut health and her overall health. So we'd love to just get started really and hear your story, Talisha.
Sure. Well, it's a bit hard to work out where my story starts, but seeing as we only have a limited amount of time.
Oh, no, we can go over.
Yeah, we can go over. It'll be interesting.
We can do, like a to be continued.
Yeah, there you go.
And make everyone wait another week. No, I hate that.
So do I.
Well, I think my story starts when I was in primary school and I remember waiting for the bus, and just before the bus would come every single day, I would need to go to the toilet. Aww. I'd say, Dad, quick, I need to do a number 2. Quick, I have to run to the toilet. And we'd run down and I'd miss the bus pretty much every couple of days. And then fast forward into high school and everyone's eating junk food for lunch. And I noticed when I had chocolate, then I'd have these horrifically smelling farts in the classroom. And it was very embarrassing. So that was when I first realized, okay, certain things don't agree with my stomach. And
were you the stinky girl?
I was, but I never admitted it.
You blamed it on someone else?
The boys, just blame it on the boys.
Yeah, boys always smell.
That's right.
Yeah, it was always the boys. And I mean, I sat at the front of the classroom. I was a bit of a nerd, so there was always a breeze coming through the door. But anyway,
strategies. I love that you've got strategies.
Anyway, so I guess that's when I first started to realize certain foods, particularly chocolate, wreaked havoc on my gut. And then when I left school and went to university, I decided to do something about it because I started dating boys and having a social life and going to uni, and I was embarrassed. And I'd get these bloated tummy, just, looking kind of like I was pregnant when I wasn't. I was, size 8. And so I just decided to do something about it. And at the time, my dad had researched the elimination diet with the Royal Prince Alfred Hospital in Sydney, and I lived just around the corner. So I went and saw them and started to do the elimination diet. And basically I remember from that time just living off, lots of rice and potato and beans and leeks and Brussels sprouts and plain chicken and no flavorings. I remember using citric acid mixed with water or sugar or something to make my vodkas have taste. You've got to remember I was in uni, so I was everything I could to get my gut better so that I could go out and have a social life. So then that actually calmed things down while I did that. But then after a few years of, living the Sydney high life, I was modelling and endless parties and travelling the world and all sorts of fun, adventurous things. But I certainly wasn't looking after my gut from, the age of 22 to 26. It was quite the opposite. So then I started to get really sick, and I noticed, I was always having to rush to the bathroom without any warning at all. My tummy always seemed to be sore, and that's when I decided to actually move home back to my parents' house and go to hospitals and do tests and sort of find out what was wrong. And it was a couple of years later that I worked out that I had ulcerative colitis, was the diagnosis that they gave me at that time. It's since changed quite a few times, as medical doctors seem to do. But then the next port of call I had was to research everything and see what I could do apart from drugs. I was taking all the medication they were giving me, but my stomach and intestines were still really bad. Bleeding, rushing to the toilet, just terrible. And so I took all the medication they gave me, but I wanted to do something extra. So that's when I looked into the specific carbohydrate diet, which is very, very similar to GAPS, although it lacks in the healing protocols, but it certainly is pretty much the same in terms of like the food restrictions. So it reduces the inflammation and reduces all the irritants, but it didn't have the healing aspect that GAPS has.
So did it have broth? And I haven't had a client or had to go down the path.
Yeah, it's got
STDs.
broth, but it's not as full on. Like it doesn't have the enemas, and it's not really doesn't really have the fermented foods. But you're not allowed to eat carbohydrates and
starches,
like starches and things. It has a lot of similarities, but it's not exactly the same.
Yeah.
So I did that for quite a while, and I actually made myself better and well enough to travel around Europe with my new boyfriend for 6 weeks, which was fantastic. And I did the specific carbohydrate diet all through my travels, which is basically the same as GAPS. So it is possible to do.
How about that? 6 weeks in Europe on the SCD diet. That's pretty good, huh, Leah?
Yeah.
I'm just stressing. This is just like, oh, no. But you didn't have to do it with children. And
yes.
No, I didn't have children, and I had a boyfriend who only liked to eat at really amazing restaurants. So actually everywhere we went.
See, I've got to get one of those.
Yeah. I'm telling Mark.
You can tell Mark. I don't care. See, this travel and eating. Oh, I could do that.
You can do it, but you have to go to really, really fancy restaurants, or actually the quite opposite. It just has to be places where they cook food from scratch.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you can get cheap meals, on the side of the road where people cook things from scratch in Asia. But in Europe, we went to France and Spain and Greece and things, and they just do it naturally. That's the way they cook. So they didn't even bat an eyelid when I said no preservatives, no colours, no flavourings, no sauces out of jars, no packets, no carbohydrates. They just said, oh, no problem, we can cook you meat and veg, and they always...
Right, you're officially my travel advisor.
Yeah, I reckon.
It was amazing. It was really, really good.
I'm off to UK in May. I'm going to need some advice here.
Well, London, I did London and Scotland, and they were probably the more difficult than
Yes, that's what I've heard. But you know what I found the other day? A restaurant in London that caters for GAPS and SCD and paleo.
Oh my gosh! See, when I did it,
Are you serious?
I'm serious. I can't remember the name of it, but I'll find it again. I've got it somewhere written down.
Yeah, That's pretty cool.
They need to franchise that and get it here.
Yeah.
Or maybe
Like we've got the
do,
Paleo
like,
Cafe, but yeah.
It's like a fancy one.
maybe they could do frozen, and then you can take them in Etsy.
Take it with me in suitcase.
Yeah.
Ship them to every place that you stay.
Or just do what you're saying and eat basic foods, which is what I generally do. Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure there'll be people there with a little Thermomix that you can whip
That's
some.
right. That's right.
And there's heaps of fresh farmers markets, so it is quite easy to get fresh food there.
Okay. What, in UK?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's really nice farmers markets. They always have beautiful flowers too, I've noticed.
Not that you can eat flowers, but
No,
you
not
can
you
some.
can.
You can eat some, yes. You could always sell your last loaf of bread and buy a hyacinth to feed your soul, as the saying goes.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Continue on with your story, Talisha.
Anyway, so at this time my health was quite good, but then I returned to Australia and I was just starting to feel stressed. I think the relationship with my partner was stressing me out a bit. And then my car blew up while I was on the freeway, the engine.
That's stressful.
It was a bit of an old bomb, and it was my own fault. I didn't check the oil and water after being away for, 6 weeks. And, so it blew up. And then I got really, really, really sick, like uncontrollably sick. And all the good work that I had done was basically undone by how stressed I was about not having a car.
Now, how interesting is that, Leah?
So I'm hearing, similar things. There's parallels, but it's like that one thing that's just too much in the bucket.
The tipping
point. And it doesn't
point.
matter whether it's, food or chemicals or exercise or whatever it is, that one thing that tips the load and you're all undone.
Yeah, and for me, I learnt that food is a massive part of it for me, but stress is really my trigger.
And I think that's the same with me. I find that, like the adrenals and all that kind of stuff, the stress can really send you down the wrong. You think you're doing really well with diet, but it's all the other things too.
Yeah, and because I'm a kind of a go-getter person, I just sort of push and push and push and push.
Me too.
And then, and my dad always says my life is sort of like I'm one of those circus acts juggling plates.
Yep.
You know how they have the long sticks on the plate?
Hey, we have a lot in common, us three.
Yeah, definitely. I'm feeling that.
Even more so now that I've got a child and a business and my health, it's very much a plate juggle.
Oh, yeah.
But, so I guess when my car blew up, my disease took an absolute dive, and that's when I started getting quite a bit sicker. But then I learned a bit to manage it with stress, and I went back to basic eating, and then I fell pregnant with Ariella, and I got better.
Which is crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
But that's what often happens. Did you tell me that often happens with, with your sort of disease?
Yeah, with autoimmune diseases, they say that it can either get heaps better or heaps worse when you get... Oh, and by this stage, they'd changed my diagnosis then to Crohn's.
Okay.
So, which is, my immune system attacking my intestines, basically saying that my intestines don't belong in my body, and Crohn's can happen anywhere in the body, whereas ulcerative colitis is just limited to the large intestine, and they're different layers. So Crohn's is often quite deeper in the tissue, whereas ulcerative colitis is like more of a surface, blisters and, the cuts and things in your intestines. It's not very pretty. But, my diagnosis had got worse, and then I got pregnant and got magically better, and it was the happiest time of my life. Awesome health, happy that Ariella was coming into the world. And then after I had her, my health took a complete dive. And, I thought all the other dives were bad and it couldn't get worse than that, but it got a lot worse. And I ended up basically living in and out of hospital, and I was a single mum, so my pregnancy with Ariella was a complete surprise, and I was all by myself, and I ended up in hospital, and the doctors were coming in every day saying, Talisha, you're not going to get back to your daughter, because my family and friends were looking after my daughter. When I was in hospital, they said, you're not going to get back unless you get your whole large intestines removed. It's the only way.
Oh, it makes you want to cry.
Oh, I'm scared.
It was horrible. And like when I was in hospital, I was so skinny. I mean, I'm a slim person anyway, but I looked like I belonged on a runway. That's how skinny I was. I had all my hair falling out and my skin was turning grey, and I could hardly walk. I couldn't make it from my bed to the bathroom, which was 3 meters. Ariella, when I was at home, I was playing with her on my bed, and she was only a tiny, tiny baby, so it was fine. But I wasn't doing the walks and things like that you do when you're a new mum, because I couldn't actually walk around. So I had my amazing mothers group friends who I'd just met. They did a roster and they dropped off food and they took Ariella for walks on the beach, and they helped me. But then I ended up in hospital. So the surgeons are coming in with my specialist, who was amazing, but they were coming in every day saying, you really need to get the surgery. You've tried all of the drugs in the past. You've done everything you can. There's nothing we can do for you. Your inflammation is so high. You're bleeding cuploads of blood every day. Ugh. You have no control. You've got a daughter sitting at home and no husband to look after her. You have to have the surgery. It's the best option for you. And I guess from my perspective, I was sitting in the hospital room and I had quite a shallow early 20s. I guess if I'm being honest, I would say I was doing lots of modelling and travelling the world, and the things that were important to me then are completely different to now. But at that time in my life, I thought that if I did have the surgery and didn't have my intestines anymore, I didn't think that I would ever meet someone. I thought I'd be alone forever, and I didn't have the self-confidence in myself to think that was an option that I could actually do. So it was very psychological at that point of time, but it spurred me into getting my computer into the hospital and researching what else I could do.
It would have been such a difficult thing, though. I mean, when you're young, that is what you would think of, isn't it?
Yeah, and it was. And just because of the life I'd had with modelling, where every job is judged on how you look.
Yeah.
It's no wonder that I didn't value, anything else higher. But, I mean, luckily I did think like that because I found things that work.
Yeah, that's right.
So there is a light at the end of the tunnel.
Right. It worked out.
Yeah, it did work out. And I was actually listening to something today where they said, with success, you don't actually grow as much as with your failures and things. Yep. So definitely. I like to think of that time as, okay, well, I needed to grow as a person, and I went through that so that I could grow.
Yep.
But what anyway. A lesson that you had to learn. Like, wow. I know it could be a little bit hard, but that is incredibly hard.
Yeah.
And
on your own too, that's the hardest thing, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it was hard, but, I had all these niggling things with my health since I was little, and I ignored it.
Yeah.
Every single time I could have gone and healed my gut, but I kept plodding along. I kept thinking that my social life was more important, or, and
I can't not drink because then I won't be able to drink with my friends. Or
yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's not even just, in my 20s when I was doing my uni degrees, it wasn't just about drinking. It was the eating out and parties and diet.
I couldn't afford to do that. What kind of uni were you going to? I was
the party uni.
I was stealing food out of my parents' fridge every time their back was turned.
I
didn't even live at home. I had a spare key and I'd sneak in there. I'd wait for them to go to work.
I was begging my parents for money.
1,000 kilometres away, so they weren't much use to me. But I was still I guess because of the circles I was in, I guess that's the the life that I led. But hey, my little sister doesn't live in the modelling world, and she goes out every weekend, and she's at uni. So
didn't she learn by your lessons?
Yeah.
No,
she obviously didn't pay attention.
She'll have to go through her own lessons, but hopefully she won't have the same issues as me.
Oh, let's hope not.
But anyway, back to hospital.
Yes.
So I was in hospital and I had my laptop with me. I made the girls at the reception of the nurses station get me a whole pad of fluorescent Post-it notes and a big marker. And I started Googling intestines and inflammation and heal your gut and Crohn's and colitis. And I found hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of stories, web pages, advice things, and just mentions of all alternative therapies which had some success. So I started writing them on Post-it notes and covering my wall a bit like a crazy person. And I probably was a bit crazy at this time, I was having
nutrient starved, yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I had a whole, a 1 meter by 1 meter space full of Post-it notes of all these different things. And then my doctor and the surgeon would come in. I'd say, look at all these things. Surely one of these can help me.
Aww.
And they'd kind of roll their eyes and be like, oh, my God, we're dealing with a nutter.
Oh, that's so funny.
But then I kind of just didn't stop saying no to the surgery. And they'd keep coming in every day and they'd just get more and more frustrated with me. And I said, look, I've got to try these things. It might take a couple of months of still being as sick as I am to try these things. But at least I'll try, and at least if I have to have the surgery, I'll be at peace with myself enough to know that I did everything in my power and that was really the last resort, which is what the doctors were telling me it was. Now, one of the things that I had on my little Post-it notes was fecal transplants, and I looked at those earlier. I think in about 2008, I went to the fecal transplant clinic in Sydney in Five Dock, the Centre of Digestive Diseases, and I met with the amazing doctor there called Professor Barodi, and it was just not good. And to be honest, the thought of fecal transplants scared the hell out of me. If you remember, in 2008, that was before I got really, really sick and before I had Ariella, so I was still in my shallow modelling headspace. Whereas when I revisited it, the research when I was in hospital, it was after I had Ariella, I realised that family and love and friendship is way more valuable and important than anything else in the world. So I was in a lot different a headspace to look at the information. And so I asked my specialist, if I could do that, and she sort of said she'd look into it for me. And they discharged me and said, look, just keep the ambulance on speed dial because we're not sure how long you're going to last at home in this condition. Your bowels could perforate at any stage. You're bleeding too much. It's really not safe for you to continue being like this and refusing surgery, but we can't keep you in the hospital bed any longer. I mean, you've been here for weeks and you're refusing treatment, so someone else needs the bed if you're just going to keep refusing. So I went home and I started a few different things on my Post-it notes. I transferred them with a whiteboard marker onto the tiles of my bathroom so that every time I was sitting on the bathroom sitting in the toilet in pain, I could look at them, all the list of things that I could possibly do and be inspired to do them. So a few of the things I did was one of the mums in the mothers group came and gave me acupuncture every single day.
You've got to tell us about her. She was amazing.
She is incredible. So her name's Christina Freeman, and she's got a clinic in Bondi Junction called AcuBondi, and she was incredible. I'd only met her a couple of times before I got sick. We didn't really know each other very well at all. And when one of the mums had come to my house and seen how sick I was, she sent a group email to everyone saying, hey guys, Talisha's really sick. We need to put together a roster to help her with Ariella. And Christina actually wrote back and said, look, I'm really busy with work. I've got all of these other commitments and things. I'm not in a position to cook and clean and take Ariella for walks. However, I can come and give her a treatment. So she came and gave me a treatment. And when she saw me, she said, I'm not leaving you until you're better. She said, I will make you better, but I'm not leaving you until you're better. I'm going to continue to treat you.
For free.
For free, yeah. She's incredible. I promised her I'll buy her a house one day in Crohn. And I will.
Yes.
But, yeah, she came every day, and it wasn't just the acupuncture that helped me. It was her words, you know, her support and her counselling. And she told me, you know, just let me treat you till Christmas. And Christmas was 6 weeks away. And she came every day, and she said, if you haven't seen any change at all since Christmas, then, yeah, you can get the surgery. That's fine. But I want you just to hold on till Christmas and do all the other things that you're doing, and I'll do the acupuncture, and, you know, let's just get to Christmas. And I think that was the key. It was a tiny, small goal. It was a goal that I had that wasn't forever. It wasn't too far away. And Christmas came, and I had slightly improved. I was still disgustingly sick, but, you know, my fevers had gone from being every second day to every, you know, 2 or 3 days. And instead of lasting 18 hours, they were lasting 12 hours. The fevers were caused from all the inflammation in my gut and the bleeding and just the general unwellness. So for me, I saw a little bit of a change, and that was enough for me to spur on to keep going. And, you know, I actually forgot to tell you the bit in hospital, how I made my dad bring my slow cooker and freezer.
Yes. Yes, tell him that bit.
Because I just realised, I'm like, at this stage I wasn't really eating. So when I was in hospital, they're trying to get me to eat, and they're saying, you know, you really need to pack on the kilos, you're scarily skinny, have a Mars bar, you know, have some chips, just make sure you pack in the calories. And, you know, they gave me that liquid hospital food, which has all the red food colouring, and I don't remember the brand, but it's horrendous.
Yuck.
And one of the things on my Post-it notes was I was looking into elemental shakes, which is basically food that's already been broken down to its chemical state so that it hits your stomach and absorbs into your bloodstream within 15 minutes. So it doesn't really have much residue go through your intestines.
Yeah, they're pre-digested, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, and we have versions of them here in the hospitals and things, but they've all got all these other artificial chemicals, and me being the organic person that I was becoming, I wanted all organic, all natural, no red colorings, and no sugars and things, because I just couldn't see how that could help me.
Clever girl.
Yeah. So I started researching what the raw ingredients were and, like, how could I get them and and then so I made my dad bring a blender in and buy the raw ingredients for me, and I started making them, and they were absolutely disgusting. They were terrible. I certainly wasn't onto a winning recipe. But so then I started making bone broths and soups and purees and just storing them in the Ziploc bags and having them in my fridge.
It's amazing.
And that's where Little Mashies was born, because I got the idea for the food patch from seeing Ariella. And then with my Ziploc bags and my purees, I thought, hey, this is much better. I'm going to create a, version of this like this, and then I can carry it around, and my daughter can eat the same puree as me, and
That's so good.
doesn't have to eat the store-bought junk.
Cute.
So then at the time Christmas came, I was still eating purees, and Ariella was eating purees because she'd just started solids. So purees, broths, and lots of coconut water as well. And that was trying to, rehydrate me, and coconut's a bit anti-inflammatory, and it was replenishing my electrolytes, which I was losing so fast. So, yeah, by the time Christmas came around, I had seen a slight improvement. And so then she said, well, do you want to continue, or do you want to get the surgery? And I said, no, I've seen a little bit of an improvement. So, if you're happy to keep treating me, I'm happy to do all the things that I'm doing. So I'll continue with my broths and my purees. And, I was doing castor oil heat packs on my tummy, and What else was I doing? I was taking coenzyme Q10 and some antioxidants and zinc tablets and all these other, natural remedies which I'd researched. I was taking them every day, about 20 tablets a day.
Yeah.
But yeah, because I'd seen a little bit of an improvement, then I decided to keep going with it. And by sort of mid-year, I was working on little Mashies from my bed, and, I'd got my friend who was a graphic designer, and she'd come sit with me, and I still couldn't really leave my bed. So
this is 6 months later down the track?
Yeah, well, as soon as I had the idea in hospital, I started actioning on it straight away, because I wanted to give myself a distraction from being so sick. And so I started researching packaging and how I could actually manufacture it and make it happen. And then my girlfriend came and did the designs with me and sort of did the legwork that I couldn't do. And she actually helped me sell all my clothes at the markets to fund it as well. Bless her. She was so good. You
should explain what kind of clothes they were.
Yeah, well, because I'd done modelling, I had all of these designer label clothes, because often people would pay me in clothes instead of money. Maybe I wasn't good enough for money. I don't know, but I just had bucket loads of clothes. I think the biggest time I had 6 wardrobes worth of clothes. So
whoa.
My girlfriend Zoe, she'd help me, and we'd go in the car together to the markets, and I'd sort of sit there looking pathetic, sitting on a chair, and we'd get the market stall closest to the bathroom, and Zoe would sort of stand on her chair, and she'd stand there going, "Chanel jacket, $10. Get your Chanel jacket for $10." And I'd be sitting there freaking out, but then she'd go, "Talisha, do you want to live your dream, or do you want a Chanel jacket that you can wear while you're in bed?" I was like, yeah, okay.
Love it.
Oh, I love those friends.
So, I was like, by the time I got back from the bathroom, which I was there all day, all my stuff would be gone, and I'd have a wad full of money, which then I'd, sort of pay the different designers and people that I needed to pay to get my little Mashies prototype started. So
I just love it. I mean, who is sick in hospital and starts a business? Who does that?
The hospital bit and the bed bit, I was really just doing the research, because, before you start anything, you need to do lots and lots of research. So, and it took me months to negotiate with the factory to give me like a, lower the quantity that I had to buy. Because they were saying, that I needed to manufacture millions. and I obviously couldn't do that. So I had to really build a relationship with them, and all that's via email. So, that was fine. So, yes, at this point I got a little bit better, and my doctor, I can't remember how many months this was now, but at some point my doctor rings me and says, "Okay, I've been talking to Professor Barodi, and we're going to let you do the fecal transplants. We're going to teach you how to do it at home because you can't afford it." And you've got to understand, I was annoying the hell out of both of these people. Like, my specialist and the fecal transplant office just wanted to get me off their backs. So,
all right. I wish you guys could just see my face, because I'm just sitting here listening, and then my mouth just fell wide open.
What?
They let you do it at home?
Yeah.
See how she can get what she wants if she pushes enough?
Oh, my gosh.
And I mean, look, to be honest, who would want to do this at home? Like, if you don't know what it is taking someone else's feces and inserting it into your body via an enema.
Right.
And they would have to have some really good candidates, some really good donors.
Who would be desperate enough to do that at home? And I'm telling you, at that point in time, I was desperate enough. Like, I could barely leave the house. When I did, I would have accidents all the time. I would try and do the market stalls, and I'd be sitting in the toilet, 6 out of the 7 hours of the market. So I really had no life. My friends from my previous years had all but disappeared because they were from the social scene, and I wasn't sociable at all. I was just sitting at home with my baby, reading books, singing songs, and in my
on
bed
the toilet.
and on the toilet. So I was desperate. I had, I didn't want to get the surgery because of my stubbornness, and
you can call it stubbornness. I'm putting it down to intuition.
Yeah.
Honey, that's insane that you had the conviction to say no.
All that time.
I know. Oh, gosh, it wasn't easy. But anyway, so my specialist was amazing, and she actually was on the Catalyst show about fecal transplants.
Gut health recently.
The health one. Yeah, she was great. And they're actually, since doing this with me, they've now got a clinical trial at St. Vincent's Hospital in Sydney, and they're doing it professionally, and lots of other hospitals in Australia are rolling out the trials and getting it into their systems so that it can be a treatment that is actually available
more
medically rather than at home, DIY. So the way it worked is the first transplant. Oh, no, well, I had to find a donor because I wasn't paying. I had to supply my own donor. So one of my amazing friends from the mothers group said that she would hit her husband up to be my donor. And I'd never met the husband, but he had a really strong gut health. She said he'd never had a problem. He goes to the bathroom every day, can eat anything he likes. He, doesn't drink heaps of alcohol, pretty clean living. So we got him tested, and the first test came back negative, that he couldn't do it for me. But then the nurse said that it may have just been because he might have had the flu, so we should get him retested because that can sometimes change the markers on the pathology test. So we got him retested, and he came back as a perfect match. So then we did it. And what the first part was, my hospital had to learn how to do it, and they went and had an intensive class with the 5 Centre of Digestive Diseases, and they inserted it, the first one, via colonoscopy when I was under. And it all went perfectly and without a hitch. And, of course, now they're doing it as part of the clinical trial. So it was a good practice run for them. And then when I got home, I had to do it for myself every day for 6 weeks. And it was pretty amazing. Like, if you think about it, everything we learn from all of our research with all gut health problems is that you need to replenish the gut bacteria. And so fecal transplants is really like taking a probiotic, except it's in its most natural form, and there's billions of different strains, and it's in such high doses.
You can't get that in a capsule.
Yeah, you can't get that in a capsule, and it's going straight to the source. So when you take,
and there's different bacteria in different parts of your body too. So the bacteria in your gut is definitely different to what's in your bowel. So it'd be like bacteria going to a like place and a like environment.
And also different nationalities often have different gut bacteria as well. And, it's just really quite fascinating. But so I was trying to do these enemas at home, and, I had to make up the mixture all of myself, and yeah,
How much mixture did you have to use? Like,
well,
Sorry, I'm just interested. Do you go back to the donor every few days and say, "Have you got a supply for me?"
I had to go to the donor every day, and he lived at the top of my street, so that wasn't a problem. Every morning, I'd get a text message from my donor, and it would say, "Your chicken is ready." And I would drive up to his house, and in the letterbox would be a plastic container with my donation, and it would be in one of those chicken bags that you get from, those hot chicken places, because I didn't have any paper bags to give him, and I didn't want to see it in a clear plastic bag. So I went to my local chicken shop and asked them if they could give me, a whole bunch of bags, which they did. So it was a little joke. Say, your chicken's ready for pickup, and I'd write back and say, thank you, can't wait for my chicken. And I'd take it home, and at the start I mixed it up in the bathroom in a blender, and then you mix it with saline, and then you have to strain it into one of those enema bags that you get from the chemist. I couldn't do that. Number one, I was dry reaching and gagging, and it was horrendous. And number two, the area which you have to insert the enema into was so sore and sensitive and really closed off because it was so inflamed that I couldn't actually insert anything. It was just way too painful. So what I did was I went to the chemist and tried to find a different alternative, and what I found were these little enema bottles that you have before a colonoscopy, which is called a fleet enema, and it's a tiny little bottle that you can take the lid off, and it has a tiny little tip on the end of it, so it was a lot less harsh for my body to deal with. And it was, of course, only, I don't know, a tenth of the mixture size. I think it's 100 mils. So it obviously wasn't that much that I could put inside me, but my intestines weren't holding anything in anyway. So, the mixture would go in for 10 seconds and come straight out. So I just thought, well, it doesn't really matter how much I do. It's not really working. So I just did that, and eventually I worked out, how to hold it in, and over time I built up to more volume. But even still, just having that little bit in there for 10 seconds, I still feel like it made a difference. And then after I finished the treatment, I just feel like I started to get better.
Wow.
So, yeah. But, at this time I was eating solid foods again. I was doing all different sorts of therapies. Like, I had done lots of tests on my hormones and found that they were all out of whack, so I was trying to fix them. I was supplementing with zinc and vitamin D, and I was deficient in everything. I was getting iron infusions and vitamin B injections. And
you wouldn't have been absorbing anything.
Yeah, well, I hadn't absorbed anything for, a year. So, at that stage I really was getting so many treatments, and I was still on the medication that the doctor had given me as well. I was just doing everything. But I really feel like after the fecal transplants, that's sort of when I started to get better.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's just because of those, or because of all the other things I did, or because of the diet that I did, or
combination
hormones. I think it's everything. But,
holistic.
It's
as in WHOLE.
Yeah.
Holistic, not HO.
Yeah.
Just everything. That's insane.
Yeah. So it was a very long journey, and like even now, this is a year ago I started to get better, I guess, or maybe a bit more. I even now I still have tummy issues, but I guess it's more IBS type symptoms rather than Crohn's or colitis.
It's not as deep.
Yeah, it's not as deep and it's not as bad. I think I'm a normal person now. Like I don't have issue. Like I don't have to stay right next to a toilet all the time. Like,
yay!
I can actually walk down the beach now, which, to be honest, for me is such a massive thing, because for so long my biggest fear was going to a park or a beach where they didn't have a bathroom within 10 meters. And now
things that you take for granted, hey?
Oh, it's incredible. And I just look back at my life in my early 20s and think what I valued, and I just shudder and I think, oh my God, I had no idea. But, now I'm living my life. Like I do little Mashies every day, and I play with my daughter, and we go to the beach every day. And, I write lots of emails to people who contact me with their stories, and they just want to know all the different things I tried. And, I try and put some recipes together so that people can feed their kids better food. So, in case they end up like me, I don't want them to. So I'm trying to teach people now how to sort of look after their kids' guts and gut flora. And, hopefully that will just be my little bit. I went through all of this for a reason, and I had the idea for Little Mashies in hospital for a reason, and it helped me get through it by being a distraction. And I guess now it's helping me to talk about my problems that I had, and what I did to help myself, and what everyone can do just to give their children the best start in life. And I think you girls doing GAPS, I mean, that was on my radar for so long. And when I didn't mention this, but when I was on the specific carbohydrate diet, when I was actually cooking at home, I found it really, really hard. When I was traveling and the restaurants were doing all my cooking, it was amazing.
Yeah.
But when I was at home, I was basically living off the same combination of food every single day because I wasn't inventive enough to come up with anything new. And I think that's, when Jo told me that she was doing GAPS, before she announced it on Facebook or before she sort of told anyone, I sent her the book that I had on GAPS, and I was just so excited because, Jo, you sort of make it easy for people to be gluten-free and dairy-free and sugar-free. That's really your repertoire for the last few years. And, to be able to use your creativeness for GAPS recipes, oh, my God, it's just going to make life so much easier for everyone who needs to try it.
I hope so.
It will, I think. So, yeah, no, I'm stoked on that. I'm stoked that you're doing it.
Oh, thanks. It happened for a reason for us too.
Yeah, I think it does happen for a reason. And, you can talk about your journey with so many people too. So hopefully they'll hear your message before they let it get to the stage, their gut health gets to the stage of where mine did, which was, I really had to do extreme measures, but hopefully, the rest of the population can kind of hear these messages and just introduce some bone broths, some fermented foods, and hopefully avoid this whole thing altogether.
Well, that's it. I mean, a lot of people won't need to go all the way with GAPS, but just having it, I wish I would have had, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, I wish I would have had an awareness of what affects gut health and how you can have good gut health. And, before I ever had kids, it would have been good to know that.
I know, mate. Like, imagine if when I was at uni and I first started on that elimination diet, if someone just said, hey, Talisha, just have like a bone broth once a day, and you'll probably save yourself a lot of trouble later on.
Imagine how good it would be if it was part of the curriculum.
Yeah.
You know what? Imagine how good it would be if I had actually have listened, because knowing me in my 20s, I probably wouldn't have listened.
That's true.
I probably would have thought, I'll be right. I'm unstoppable.
No. You're missing the whole... I have to interject because I'm back with you at the hospital. If you had listened, you would have followed their directions.
That's true.
And you would have gone down that path. You wouldn't have listened to your inner wisdom. So whether or not you say you're, I'm pig-headed or I'm stubborn or all those other things, that stubbornness was what you got. You denied that operation because you were looking for something else. You knew you had a better option coming, but even though you hadn't located it yet. So, that insight and that inner strength, man, your stubbornness has saved you. So you watch your words, because don't you ever talk down about your stubbornness, because that is your truth.
Because it wasn't really stubbornness, it was inner strength.
It was inner strength.
Oh,
rephrase it.
That's the thing, though. Like, when I look back now, I'm like, wow, yeah, I was strong. But at the time, I didn't feel strong. I felt like I was grasping for air, I thought I just wanted to wear a bikini in the sun one more time. And I just wasn't even thinking I'm a strong woman. I was thinking, I'm desperate. I can't do this. I have to find another solution.
Isn't it funny how you intuitively go into survival mode, though, sometimes, and of course you don't feel strong at the time and you don't even know if you're doing the right thing and you're so confused and fuzzy-headed, but that survival mode kind of thing kicks in and you just intuitively go the right direction.
It's so weird. But, and then as well, I've met people since that have had the surgery and they're 100% happy, their lives are amazing.
Yep, I've heard that too.
They're totally fine with their decision, and I applaud them, and I think that's amazing too. Like, they knew for them that was the best option.
Yeah.
But for me, I just never once had that thought that it was the best option. You know, I had moments where I would, you know, almost give in, but even then I didn't think, no, this is the best option for me.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's just interesting because we're all different, and
It is, yeah.
I feel like you need to replenish the good bacteria, but it just seems for every person it's like a different formula. It's the same parts of the formula but just jumbled around in a certain way. Like, one person might have to go off gluten plus replenish their gut flora. Another person might have to give up chocolate plus replenish gut flora, whereas another person might have to do GAPS and then, you know, or heal themselves with hormones. And, you know, it's just everyone's different, but the same things sort of pop up again and again.
I think it's like we were saying on our last podcast, Leah, about, you know, as you take things out of your diet and make it really simple and then start working on what's affecting you, you really start to learn to listen to your body. And if we're just sort of eating the usual Western diet and doing everything the way that most of the world does it, generally you get worse, not better.
Yeah, well, like,
and it becomes harder to listen too.
It becomes much harder to listen.
Yeah, it's like all those things. If you're not being intuitive and you're not, I don't know, looking further and deeper and questioning everything, it just becomes this great big clouded mess, and you don't know whether you've got a headache because you've had too much coffee, or whether you've got a headache because of hormones, or a headache because you've got a pinched nerve. So you have to go and use all of those therapies to undo. And the more you undo, the more clear you are at what part of the body the imbalance is coming from.
And it takes time. And I guess people get overwhelmed and go, oh, forget it, I'm just going to take a Panadol because it's an easy option. But it's so worth
Well, that's the normal option too.
That's the normal option.
Yeah.
It's so worthwhile taking the time to figure out what's wrong and getting back to the basic, you know, foundation, or what's the word, the root of the cause.
Yeah, well, it's interesting too, because when I started eating solid food, I was eating bread, and I didn't notice a difference at all.
Okay.
I didn't notice whether that was making me sick or not, because I was sick every day.
Yeah.
So I couldn't even tell the difference. And people would say to me, you know, you should really cut out gluten. You know, it would be causing havoc on your digestive system. And I said, no, I had bread this morning, and I feel exactly the same today as I did yesterday.
Which was awful.
Which is awful. But then it was interesting because after I did all of the random therapies and the fecal transplants and you know, got my hormones back in check and my vitamins back to normal, I actually started to feel a bit bad when I ate certain foods.
And that's what we were talking about last week.
Yeah, we were. We were talking about the sensory receptors and how damaged they are. I think I gave an analogy about counting sheep going through a sheep gate.
Yeah.
You know, like you can count the 1 or 2 and the body picks up on, that's that, that's this, and it catalogues them and deals with them. But as soon as you open that floodgate, you know, like, and you've got 50 things going through all at the same time, the body just throws its hands in the air and goes, right, can't do it, game over.
Yeah.
You know?
So I've now, it's interesting because I've kind of done like a big full circle. So I started noticing different symptoms because I was feeling well enough to leave the house. So then when I got a bit of a bellyache or, you know, really bloated or something, I was like, no, this can't be right. I'm not wanting to do this again. So then now I've cut out, you know, all packaged food. I don't really buy anything in a packet or a bottle or a can. And then I've cut out gluten, which made such a difference. Dairy, I'm still trying to cut out coffee. I cut it out and then I
went to visit me and I let you have it. Sorry.
We had I mean, it was so weird.
On the topic of visiting Jo, how did she feed you? Like, how was that
She fed me
to
GAPS.
what you would normally have? She fed you GAPS, obviously, but how did you fare with her and the change? Because it's a different environment.
Yeah, it was interesting because it was totally different to my experience when I cooked SCD at home. It was the same ingredients pretty much, but a totally different experience. When I was
hopefully a good one.
yeah, when I did it, I can't even remember the year. Maybe 2010 or 8 or one of those. When I did it, it was pumpkin or chicken broth cooked with the whole chicken inside and some pumpkin and some veggies, and that's pretty much what I would eat. And then I'd have yogurt and mashed banana into the yogurt, and then I think another meal I'd have boiled chicken with, I don't know, boiled veggies or something, and that was about it. It was horrendous. But then when I went to Jo's, she's, almost on full gaps now, so we were having a different meal every single meal time, and that's another thing. Like, I don't cook 3 meals a day at home. I have 2. And, Jo's meals are extravagant, but then she was feeding 8 people. So we were in the kitchen from, 7 o'clock every day to sort of 9:30 every night cooking.
Hey, we had some breaks.
Cooking or hanging out?
I mean,
both.
I had a tendency to hang out in Jo's kitchen. She cooked and I hung.
And we did take a lot of photos.
Yeah, we took a lot of photos because I want to chronicle what she actually does eat in a week. Because I found it really interesting, because they were delicious, yummy meals, and even her husband sort of, 90% of the meals he had no idea that they were.
Did you get to meet Dave?
Yeah, he's fantastic.
Even I went to stay and I didn't get to meet Dave.
How was it at work when you were there?
The mysterious. He was in
He
Perth.
mysteriously had a holiday. He heard I was coming.
The mysterious husband.
I think he'll need a holiday after we left. having a 2-year on the hat. Ariella would wake up every morning and go stand next to him while he made his breakfast and be like, "Can I have some? Can I have some?" So then Joe and I would get up and make her and all the rest of the kids some breakfast. But anyway, back to what we ate. It was fantastic. Like, there was lots of bone broth. There was a bone broth cooking in the slow cooker or the crock pot every day. And for breakfast, mostly we would always have sort of poached eggs with a bone broth. But, one day it would be a chicken broth, the next a lamb, the next a beef, or, and then veggies
Different
inside
veggies.
It as well would be different.
That that broth and egg station was pretty good that we did one morning.
Yeah. So that was really good. And I don't normally have breakfast at home until about 10:30 because that's just the first chance I have.
That was me today.
Yeah. I just tend to be busy in the mornings making Ariella's lunch from scratch and dealing with her and getting her ready. I don't get to sit down till sort of 10:30. So actually, for my health, it was really amazing seeing the difference when I do have bone broth first thing in the morning. It was really good. But then for lunch and dinner, we would have all different types of food, but basically it was soft food, soft meat, soft veggies, and broth was used in the cooking in some way. But we had all sorts of things. We had like roast chicken with, the 40 cloves of garlic. We had an amazing beef stew. We had zoodle, zucchini noodles with pasta sauce. What else did we have? We had
Pizza.
Frittatas. Oh, pizza is amazing. So one of the things I miss most about being like sort of grain-free-ish, I still have quinoa now and then, but is pizza. I love pizza. I'm so addicted to it. And, I've traveled around Italy, and Italy's my favorite country because of it. But when Joe made me this pizza, and it's basically a pizza but with meat used as the base instead of dough, oh my gosh, it was so good. I could not believe it. I actually think it's better than normal pizza.
All right.
And it's cheese on it. Like, that is, it was really good.
Yeah, my kids asked for that a lot.
Yes, and Ariella loved that as well. We did lots of experimenting with some treats as well. There's a couple of recipes on Joe's blog from last week. That chocolate mousse we made was
that was good.
Incredible. Raspberry pickle chocolate mousse. Oh my god. Although I'm not good with chocolate, so I felt sick the next day.
Yeah, we only had a little bit, Leah, we promise.
Oh,
Yeah, right.
No, we did. We had a time.
What happens at Joe's stays at Joe's. I know. I was given the same thing.
but I'm not even on gaps, but just for me, chocolate's never been good for me. But, you know, it was dairy-free and sugar-free and gluten-free and made with really healthy ingredients, you know, like avocado and,
And lots of love, so that makes all the difference.
Lots of love, just a little bit of honey. But, yeah, no, I got sick after that. But, oh, my God, it was like I died and gone to heaven. It was.
You should have heard her. She raved. It was so funny.
Dave came in and I'm like, Dave, you have to try this chocolate mousse. It's amazing. And I'm pretty sure he asked, he's like, you know, is it a normal chocolate mousse or chocolate?
He would too.
Yeah, and I was like, it doesn't matter. Trust me, it's the best thing ever. Yeah. No, so we ate really well. We had lots of ginger tea, which I never have had before, and I've never been a fan of ginger, but I really enjoy it now. And it's just sliced ginger with the skin off, hot water and a bit of honey. And that was so refreshing, and it was like a little pick-me-up every couple of hours. It was great.
Yeah. I've got a friend that's a nutritionist, and over winter we caught up with her, and she's actually got it in a recipe book as well. But she makes on the stove a turmeric tea, which is an anti-inflammatory, and it's got the ginger and the turmeric, and she boils it up, like she grates up the fresh turmeric, or you can use dried turmeric, and then she uses, you know, fresh or dried ginger, and that goes onto the stove, and she boils it up in coconut cream. Nice. So if other people could have milk, then, you know, that's fine too. But she boils that up, and then she adds pepper to it, and she was saying something like, you know, like like black pepper. She was saying that
I've heard,
you know, those two things are so nourishing on the gut. One's anti-inflammatory, whatever, but as soon as you put the black pepper in, it was just, you know, like it through the roof. Like it was like 300 times more strength and anti-inflammatory properties than the original two ingredients together.
Wow.
So I'd have to double check that, but it was just insane just by adding that one extra herb. It was just through the roof.
Wow.
Yeah. So when I was sick, I had turmeric on everything. Turmeric on everything.
Well, we have it growing in our garden. If you need any, let me know.
You didn't tell me that.
Oh, sorry. Heaps of it.
Yeah, grated turmeric and coconut oil in peppermint tea. So
really?
Yeah, because coconut oil's really, really good as well. And so I read somewhere just to add it into everything. Yeah. And I was drinking a fair bit of tea, so I thought, okay, well, I'll just add it into my tea because that's an easy way to consume quite a bit during the day. So then I was using coconut oil, and actually that's how I switched easily from dairy to being dairy-free because I love Earl Grey tea with milk and a sugar. And one of the things when I was doing specific carbohydrate, the hardest thing for me was giving up my Earl Grey tea with milk. I still think I could have had it without the milk, but to me it wasn't as nice, so I didn't bother. But because I'd been doing the coconut oil in my peppermint tea, I started doing the coconut oil in my normal tea with milk when I was having dairy, and then eventually I just stopped adding the milk and instead added coconut cream, and I couldn't even taste the difference. It tasted exactly the same.
Coconut cream or coconut oil?
So I started with
the
Earl
oil
Grey
and
with
and milk.
Cow's milk and a teaspoon of oil.
Yep. And
I did that for a few weeks, and then eventually I changed the cow's milk for coconut cream.
Yep. Okay.
And
that's a good idea.
Because I'd already been doing the coconut oil, which tasted basically the same as coconut cream, it made the milk a bit coconutty. Then when I got rid of the dairy, I couldn't notice the difference.
Oh, that's good.
I was already in tune to it, so that made it a lot easier.
It's a good tip.
Yeah, it was a winner finding that. I wish I knew that.
I love a good transition story.
Yeah, so do I. We should probably finish up here, but I just want to ask you if you want to just tell us what's your goals going forward, Talisha, with, you know, what direction do you think you're heading with all the things that you've learnt? Is that putting you on the spot?
No, well, I mean, lucky it's the start of the year, so I have been thinking about my goals a bit.
Yeah.
I would really, I love running little Mashies, and, you know, I started it so that I could change the way my daughter ate, and, you know, obviously it was inspired by my little Ziploc bags that I was doing, But I think the more I talk to mums, I just really realise that they really need help learning how to help their kids' gut, but in a really quick way because everyone's so busy. Yeah. So I'd really like to do something this year along those lines, just making life a little bit easier for mums to help their kids. Yeah. And then for my personal goals, I really want to get back into exercise because for me it's been such a psychological issue. I've been so scared to exercise because that in the past brought on, I'd need to go to the bathroom. And I had this fear of going to the beach for so long. Well, the last few months I've been going to the beach every day and I've been fine. So this year I really want to go and do some yoga and Pilates and get my core strength up, and I think that will really help my stress levels and my gut as well. And then I just want to continue eating well, and I think I do. I do my bone broths every few days, and I'm gluten and dairy free, so that takes a lot of the things. Yeah, I mean they irritate my gut, so it's good that I've got rid of that. I'd like to work out what other things are irritants for me, but
chocolate.
Yeah, sure, don't say that.
Sorry.
I know. I don't have it too often, so that's okay. I would like to find out what else is an irritant for me, and then also get my hormones retested again because I feel like they might be a bit out of whack again.
Yeah.
So a few things.
And so with helping mums, are you thinking of doing a recipe book or anything?
Yeah, I'm going to do a recipe book for like play lunches and daycare snacks.
Oh, that's a good idea.
I think, everyone can give their kids carbohydrates and fruit quite easily. Like I never hear from mums, I have a problem getting my child to eat carbs.
No.
I don't think I've ever received an email that says that. But I do find that parents find it quite difficult to get protein and veggies into their kids. And, little Mashies are great because you can make green smoothies and add in veggies there. But then protein, I mean, for the babies, you can make meat and veg purees, but primary school kids don't really want to be taking minced lamb in a little Mashie to school. So, I think I just want to help them by making a little recipe book where it's really quick recipes that they can do, while they're juggling a child on their hip or running around doing all the other chores that one needs to do, and that will actually have meals in it that will benefit their kids' gut, not deplete the good bacteria. So, I really want to help with that.
Oh, that's a great goal to have.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
No, I can't wait to hear it. I'm going to have to have you back at the end of the year.
Yeah.
To see, because I've written all those things down. We're going to check off this list and see what you've done. I'm holding you accountable.
She's such a health coach, isn't she?
Now the pressure's on.
Good on you.
Okay, in that case, I have to say one more thing that I really
want. Do it.
Because I've been thinking about this, should I announce it on my page so that I'm accountable, and I haven't wanted to.
Yeah, just tell Jo and I. We won't tell anyone.
We won't tell anybody.
Don't tell anyone. Okay. I really want to have a good butt.
A good butt.
Yeah, good butt. You know how you see on all those girls that exercise, they have like a,
Don't we all want one of those?
I really want a good butt, but it means I have to do squats and lunges and...
Oh, that is a bit scary
those
for you,
things
isn't it?
scare me. So if you're giving me a year, maybe we can check back this time next year and see if it's a little bit better than what it looks like now.
Well, beauty starts on the inside, and you have done so much work in nourishing your butt to this time. I can't wait for you to post photos on Instagram of your butt.
Oh, great.
I'm going to be so excited.
Do you know what? I think if I did that, I think I would get quite a few unfollows.
No way.
Unfollow.
She's going to be one of those Instagrammers. No.
An oversharer.
Yeah.
Oh, no way. Excellent. Well, I'm looking forward to that.
Good on you,
It doesn't matter if
Talisha.
anyone else isn't. I am.
Good on you, Talisha. That's something that's, I know it is scary for you.
That's a big deal. Yes.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Talisha. We've really enjoyed hearing your story, and I bet everyone else has too. And wow, what a story, hey? I just think there's so much inspiration there. So I hope you all found it helpful. And if you've got questions for Talisha, you can go onto her Facebook page, which is Reusable Squeezy Pouches Little Mashies. Is that what it says, Talisha? Is she still there? Hello?
Hello, I'm here.
Oh, you're here. That's the main thing. No.
Oh, we've lost her.
We've lost her. Well, at least we didn't lose her till the end.
No, we'll put a link up, though.
We will. She said her computer's just died. Okay. But we'll definitely put a link up to Talisha's page, and you can go onto her page and contact her if you've got any questions about all the things that she was talking about. She's very quick to respond. She's great. And obviously you can ask us on our pages to send us a message or comment on our blogs or on the Wellness Couch. So we'll post some links for you as well, and you can check them out there on the wellnesscouch.com/A Quirky Journey. And we'd love for you to subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, and also check out the wellnesscouch.com, where you can view the entire range of wellness podcasts available. So keep working on those small changes, and we'll be back to share more journeys with you next week. Thanks for listening, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Whilst the Wellness Couch presenter endeavored to provide accurate and helpful information to their listeners, these podcasts cannot take into account individual circumstances and are not intended to be a substitute for health and medical advice from a qualified health professional. You should always seek the advice of a qualified health professional before acting on any of the information provided.